When you're not a major figure, people ignore you. When you're a major figure, people attack you daily. But in the 21st century, when you're a black man who's becoming powerful and influential, they'll try to attack you before you become a major figure. This is what happened recently to Dr. Umar Johnson. Brother Johnson has been traveling the world spreading the word of Pan-Africanism and deconstructing racism in the education system in America. Dr. Johnson was invited to speak in Portland public schools as part of a diversity initiative. All was well until a reporter named Nicole Dunca at the newspaper The Oregonian decided to go on a 2-day jihad against Dr. Johnson by harassing the black appointees who were given token positions over this diversity initiative and who she knew would do anything to keep their menial jobs, all in order to divert attention from the critical issue of education and onto something that has nothing to do with school children: Dr. Johnson's views on homosexuality. Why is a reporter for an Oregon newspaper so fixated on homosexuality and children? The media never goes into this, but the end result was the school district canceling Umar Johnson's speech. However, I had a number of questions about this. Who is Nicole Dunca? What is the Oregonian? And why did they consider Umar Johnson such a threat? First off, we look at Nicole Dunca. She's a 26-year-old Filipino from California, specifically Millbrae, California. She graduated from Mills High School, one of the most mind-bogglingly segregated schools in the United States. Now, being a resident of the state of Louisiana, I've seen the definition of racially separated all my life, but Nicole Dunca's high school alma mater is in an alternate dimension on a level that only Governor George Wallace himself could properly appreciate. It's a majority Asian school, but it's the black population of the school that is most alarming. With a school population of over 1,500 students, this school consistently keeps its black student population down to almost single digits. The atmosphere at Nicole Dunca's high school is so oppressive that in 1999, the black students formed a self-esteem club in order to prevent themselves from feeling totally disenfranchised. Back then, there were only 13 black students, just a couple of years before Miss Dunca would ostensibly become a student there. This is the environment that Nicole Dunca comes from. And in case you were under the delusion that the situation has somehow radically changed there since then, in 2010, the California Department of Education reports that the black student population at Mills High School was only 19 students. Black people are 13% of the American population, but at Miss Dunca's high school, we're only 1%. Is it any wonder she would wind up doing a story like she did? Some people will try to say that this isn't indicative of a problem, but a look at her current life would indicate otherwise. Remember when I said she was Filipino? I know this because she said it. She says it all the time, and she never gets tired of reminding you. Whenever she sees anything relating to Filipinos anywhere, she immediately highlights it, no matter how insignificant. She even has her own Filipino radar. If anyone even so much as mentions someone who's even partially Filipino, Nicole puts a spotlight on them. I guess this is the reason she left it up to her friends in the Portland media to attack Brother Johnson on the front of Pan-Africanism, as she probably wanted to do herself, because she is too vulnerable when it comes to ethnic promotion. But her defenders will try to say that this isn't illustrative of a problem with her. Well, let's look at her personal views and see if that stands up to scrutiny. Now, you have to remember that in modern America, only the ignorant and clumsy call you a nigger when they want to attack you. The smart people engage in the sophisticated bigotry of racial code words. They pick out something that identifies a specific racial group without using racial slurs, and then they attack that aspect which essentially accomplishes the racial assault without ever directly calling it that. A glimpse into Dunca's Twitter feed provides a wealth of such examples. A guy named Shane asks her about Mike Tyson writing a book. Her only interest in such a thing was to find out why Tyson got his facial tattoo. One of the greatest boxers of all time, and she only wants to know about a tattoo? That entire exchange struck me as odd. I kept moving, but I kept it in mind for future reference. She repeatedly references rap, and not surprisingly, none of it good. She references a New York Times story about hip-hop in Brooklyn. But when you click on the link, what is the first thing you see? The late rapper Notorious B.I.G. and references to his selling drugs on the street corner in large letters. Never mind the fact that it's all fiction, and Biggie was rhyming about criminal exploits he never actually engaged in. Black men who are not positive role models are just wonderful in Nicole Dunca's world. Black men who are trying to build, like Umar Johnson, are the only ones she doesn't like. She sees another company that is a bunch of white males with a black male mascot calling itself a rap music outfit for satire called Rap Genius. She comments that she would like to join them and sabotage the company from the inside out. Forgive me if I forgot to laugh. Umar Johnson, Biggie Smalls, and now this. So far, we haven't been able to find a single black male that Nicole Dunca has anything good to say about them. Wait, we found one. She did tell someone that she likes Genuine's music. Now, for those of you who don't remember him, Genuine is an R&B singer who's famous for raunchy and gutter songs like Ride My Pony. Now, while Miss Dunca is burning up her keyboard and cell phone minutes stalking Umar Johnson about what videos say about his views on other people, has anyone asked Miss Dunca what her high school and her tastes in music say about her views on black people? So far, it's not looking too good. But don't worry, she's got a sense of humor, of a sort. She tweets that she was ambushed by 2 dreadlocked dogs. Now, I'm not sure how a dog can have dreadlocks, but in case you're doubting a racial connotation, her friend Shane is back again, and he asks if the dogs had eaten their owner's pot brownies. So this isn't even a veiled racial reference. If you got dreads in Nicole Dunca's social circles, then obviously you're part of drug culture. So much for assuming her environment isn't indicative of what she believes. Now, Ms. Dunca doesn't consider someone who questions homosexuality to be acceptable to speak at a public school. But on her timeline, she makes it clear that she gives the thumbs up to vegan strip clubs. I'm sure that will be much better for the children in the public schools of Portland than Dr. Johnson speaking about education. We could talk about her affinity for alcohol, but that's another issue. So now that we've taken a look into the moral authority that is Nicole Dunca, we have to look at the newspaper that gave her journalistic police powers to threaten other people with negative publicity if they don't subscribe to her twisted code of ethics that doesn't approve of heterosexuality except at strip clubs. Nicole Dunca's employer is the Oregonian. In order to understand how desperate the situation is at the Oregonian, you first need to understand the chronological events that led to this poster child for yellow journalism. The last few years at the Oregonian have basically been a daily fight to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. By their own admission, their paper is no longer selling enough to make any type of real profit. They are merely in business today to maintain their jobs. For the longest time, black people have been on guard against the American right in the press, but Malcolm X and others warned us decades ago that it was the liberals who had their own manipulative agenda against us, and we're seeing that play out now for people like Dr. Johnson. The Oregonian used to be a publishing powerhouse, but as the society has wizened up and taken the audience online, the Oregonian has seen its fortunes plummet. In March of 2002, 428,069 readers received their papers on Sundays. By March of 2004, that number had dropped to 412,113, according to an ABC report. And daily subscriptions at that time fell from 349,426 readers to 342,040 readers. As of today, the Oregon Newspaper Publishers Association shows the current figures at the Oregonian are 247,833 readers for their Monday through Friday edition, 238,883 on Saturday, and 306,712 readers on Sunday. There's a very clear pattern going on at the Oregonian, and that pattern is toward extinction. So, in order to hold on to their disintegrating reader base, they are latching on to any and every event, trying to entice readers not to bypass their paper again. In a desperate attempt to survive another day and to draw something resembling an audience to their floundering publication, writer Nicole Dunca went on a 2-day crime spree against Dr. Umar Johnson in a non-stop smear campaign in which she implies that there's something wrong about what he said, but she never actually states what it is that was objectionable or even incorrect. Meanwhile, the writing is on the wall for her newspaper, and even the rest of her co-workers know it. In a story updated only a month ago in December 2013, KATU.com reports what used to be a supposed news-gathering organ is now reduced to a real-life game of Survivor, where everyone is left to guess who will be the next person voted off of the island, after announcing last summer that they will be cutting their publication's home delivery to only 4 days a week and would instead be working to retool their newspaper into an online publication, ostensibly in a last-ditch effort to save the last remnants of their organization and cut costs. Perhaps this is why Ms. Dunca and her cohorts would rather focus on a speaker at a school rather than pursue real news. They're preoccupied with saving their own necks and would prefer if people turned their attention in other directions. Kimberly Wilson of the Oregonian did a story just last week following up on the earthquake in Haiti. You don't have to make it very far before she immediately begins to cast aspersions on the Haitian government by using the same tactics as Nicole Dunca and insinuating that the Haitian government was overstating the number of people dead. Wilson does just like Dunca and never states that the problem is with the Haitian government's numbers. She just states that someone else in America had a different number, and that because of that, we now have no accurate count of the dead. Miss Wilson made it through the first round of job cuts at her employer, and she survived the drug test to retain her job. And now she obviously has decided that the best course of action to keep her job is jump on the bandwagon of attacking black people. I don't see why not. That seems to be the way you come up in the ranks at the Oregonian. Miss Dunca and her employer have plenty of opportunities to stalk the Portland School Board for real offenses against society. She puts up a story about disproportionate punishment against minority students in Portland schools. But you'll notice something. She never follows up on it. She doesn't make repeated phone calls. She doesn't go on a 2-day crusade. She doesn't ring phones off the hook or go on a campaign to rattle the cages. Nothing. All she does is print one story and then moves on to about how it sucks that she can't get all the kinds of bagels she likes. There's another story that her paper did about Martin Luther King School's test scores. But, like everything else in schools involving black children, Ms. Dunca lost interest as soon as it was reported. No follow-up, no stalking. And on the subject of police brutality, Portland is not immune. Like every other metropolitan area in America, there's been a non-stop parade of killings of unarmed black men in their area. But no one at the Oregonian, not Kimberly Wilson, and certainly not Nicole Dunca, felt this was worthy of scrutiny or following up on. They never engaged in a Twitter war on the police department and its chief. No rummaging through his YouTube or personal messages to assess his statements. Nicole Dunca has never questioned what effect the presence of these same police at a public school would have on students. She does, however, retweet a story from the Brown University newspaper that claimed most students at Brown University didn't like the fact that black students protested former New York Police Commissioner Ray Kelly for his illegal stop-and-frisk policy in New York when he came to speak at the school. She doesn't, however, retweet any poll stating what the black citizens of Oregon feel about Ray Kelly, or the police, or anything for that matter. From her high school years, to her internship working for the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, to her racially dubious tenure at the Oregonian, she's made it tacitly clear she cares more for living homosexuals than she does for dead black people. Clearly, the only thing that Nicole Dunca and the Oregonian feel the power of their presses is good for is targeting black speakers who don't follow their own personal ideologies. I haven't seen any critical stories from the Oregonian about religious schools' stand on homosexuality. In fact, their paper is pretty congenial toward Catholics. But this so-called liberal newspaper made it a point to attempt to assassinate the character of a black man who holds the same views as the Catholic Church. If you're starting to see a pattern forming here, there's good reason. If there was just one incident, then it could be excused. But we have a long track record of incident after incident and a pathology of behavior that makes it plain that this was nothing short of an attempted hit on one of the most upstanding citizens in black society today. While many people are simply talking about the problems confronting black people today, Umar Johnson is one man who's actually getting up and did something about it. He's taken to the streets with nothing more than his wits and a microphone. And apparently this was what Miss Dunca couldn't tolerate. The only black men that she seems to like with a microphone are the ones putting on a modern-day minstrel show for her amusement. Black men who can actually think and galvanize the masses for something other than being entertained are clearly a threat in her mind that need to be targeted for annihilation. I'm calling on any sane person to totally disregard the terroristic journalism of Nicole Dunca and the Oregonian, to target black people in Oregon with a de facto re-education agenda to turn people against their own best interests. People like Nicole Dunca and the Oregonian are only happy with a black man as long as he's weak and humble and dancing a jig, or in this case, wearing a dress. And what really offended them most is that this time a black man wasn't going to do that. And taking into account their past and current circumstances, that isn't surprising.